Shabbat Shalom. We're going to get started right away. We're going to jump in with a psalm. I'll have a few words to welcome everybody in a moment, but first let's start off with singing. We'll sing a psalm that has the words, Shir Ladonai Shir Chadash, sing a new song to God. Now, understand that this psalm is almost 3,000 years old, and they were already saying, let's sing a new song. Page 344. Sing unto God, and we'll all sing along. All the earth a new song unto God. Shiru Ladonai Kol Haaretz. Shiru Ladonai Shir Chadash. Sing unto God, all the earth a new song. I will sing unto God a new song. Sing unto God, and we'll all sing along. All the earth a new song unto God. Shiru Ladonai Kol Haaretz. Shiru Ladonai Shir Chadash. I will sing unto God a new song. Shabbat Shalom. Welcome to all of our members and all of our guests, anybody who's worshiping with us for the very first time. We're glad that you're here. Welcome to everybody who's watching online. We're glad that you're with us as well. You can follow along in the service in our prayer book. If you don't have one, please pick one up from the rack and back, along with the service pamphlet that has the Torah and Haftarah reading. Those of you watching online, you can also find a prayer book on our website. Go to our website and click on Virtual Resources, and you'll see a link for Mishkan Tefillah. That's our prayer book for Shabbat. Many of you are here this morning to celebrate with Jake Rossler as he celebrates his status as a bar mitzvah. And what that means is that Jake is going to lead us in our worship this morning. He's going to lead us in our prayers. He's going to chant to us from the Torah and the Haftarah, the selection from the prophets, and he's going to teach us about this morning's Torah portion. And I hope that you will join in all of our prayers and our songs and our celebration of Shabbat. Now, to get into the space, the spiritual place of Shabbat, we have to leave the week behind. How do you do that? We turn off all those devices. We're not here to be spectators, to watch what's going on, but to be fellow travelers. And so this is not a time for taking snapshots of what's happening, but rather to immerse yourself in the spiritual experience, in the spiritual moment, which Jake is going to lead us through. So I invite you to participate with all of your hearts. We're going to begin with a traditional greeting for entering the sanctuary, Ma Tovu. How good are your tents, O Jacob, on page 74. Ma Tovu
Please turn to page 77. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe. With divine wisdom, you have made our bodies, combining veins, arteries, and vital organs, into a finely balanced network. Wondrous maker and sustainer of life, were one of them to fail, how well we are aware, we would lack the strength to stand before you. Blessed are you, Adonai, source of our health and strength. Baruch atah Adonai, rofei chol basar umafli la'asot. We continue on page 78.
Elohai, Elohai, Neshama, Neshama, Shenatata bi, Shenatata bi, Tehorahi, Tehorahi. Elohai, Elohai, Neshama, Neshama, Shenatata bi, Shenatata bi, Tehorahi, Tehorahi.
We continue on page 86. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidishanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. O Adonai, our God, let the words of Torah be sweet in our mouths, and the mouths of your people Israel, so that we, our descendants, and the descendants of all your people Israel, may know you by studying your Torah for its own sake. Blessed are you, Adonai, who teaches Torah to your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, hamelamed Torah le'amo Yisrael. We read together on page 88. These are things that are limitless, of which a person enjoys the fruit of the world, while the principle remains in the world to come. They are honoring one's father and mother, engaging in deeds of compassion, arriving early for study, morning and evening, dealing graciously with guests, visiting the sick, providing for the wedding couple, accompanying the dead for burial, being devoted in prayer, and making peace among people. But the study of Torah encompasses them all. Please turn to page 96. A psalm, a song for Shabbat. It is good to praise Adonai, to sing hymns to your name, O Most High, to proclaim your steadfast love at daybreak, your faithfulness each night with a 10-stringed harp, with voice and lyre together. You have gladdened me by your deeds, Adonai. I shout for joy at your handiwork. How great are your works, Adonai, how very subtle your designs. A brute cannot know, a fool cannot understand this. The righteous bloom like a date palm. They thrive like a cedar in Lebanon. Planted in the house of Adonai, they flourish in the courts of our God. In old age they still produce fruit. They are full of sap and freshness, attesting that Adonai is upright, my rock, in whom there is no wrong. We continue on page 100.
Shama, Hallelu Betzotzelei Trua, Kol Hanshama Tehalelia, Kol Hanshama Tehalelia. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
We continue on page 102. Please read responsively. Even if our mouths were full of song as the sea, and our tongues full of joy in countless waves, and our lips full of praise as wide as the sky's expanse, and were our eyes to shine like sun and moon, if our hands were spread out like heaven's eagles,
And our feet swift like young deer,
we could never thank you adequately, Adonai,
our God and God of our ancestors, to bless your name for 10,000th of the many myriads of times.
You granted favors to our ancestors and to us. Please turn to page 106. Yikadal v'yikada shemei rabba.
Amen.
Belma divarach hirote v'yamlich malchute. B'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael. Bagala, bagala, uvizman karib. Vimeru.
Amen.
Yehi shmei rabba mevorach, le'olam lal me'el maya, yitbarach, yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar, v'yitromam, v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar, v'yitaleh, v'yitalal, shemei dekudesha,
Brechu.
le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, Damiran Be'alma Vimeru.
Amen. Yai la lai 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 lai. Yai la lai 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 lai. Yai la lai 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 lai. Yai la lai 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 lai. Yai la lai 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 lai.
You may be seated. We continue on page 110. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, yotzer or uvorei choshech, oseh shalom uvorei et hakol, hameir la'aretz v'ladarim alecha birachamim, uvtuvo mechadesh bechol yom tamid, ma'aseh v'reishit, ma rabu ma'asecha Adonai. Kulam b'chochma asita, mala haaretz kinyanecha, titbarach Adonai Eloheinu, al shevach maaseh yadecha, ve'al me'orei or she'asita yefa'arucha selah, or chadash al tzion ta'ir, v'nizkeh chulanu meheira le'oro. Baruch atah Adonai, yotzer ha'me'orot. Please turn to page 112. How deeply you have loved us, Adonai, our God, gracing us with surpassing compassion, on account of our forebears, whose trust led you to teach them the laws of life. Be gracious to us, teaching us as well. O merciful one, have mercy on us by making us able to understand and discern, to heed, learn, and teach, and lovingly to observe, perform, and fulfill all that is in your Torah. Enlighten our eyes with your Torah. Focus our minds on your mitzvot. Unite our hearts in love and reverence for your name. Then we will never feel shame, never deserve rebuke, and never stumble. Having trusted in your great and awesome holiness, we shall celebrate your salvation with joy. Gather us in peace from the four corners of the earth, and lead us upright to our land. For you, O God, work wonders. You chose us. Truly, you drew us near to your great name, that we might acknowledge you, declaring you one in love. Praised be you, Adonai, who chooses your people Israel in love. Baruch atah Adonai, habocher be'amo Yisrael be'ahava. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem, Kevod Malchuto, Leolam Va'ed. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, B'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha, u'b'chol meodecha. Ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele, asher anochi mitzavecha, hayom alevavecha. Ve'shinantam levanecha, ve'dibarta bam, ve'shivtecha b'veitecha, u'vlechtecha v'aderech, u'shochbecha u'vkumecha. Ukshartam leot al yadecha, ve'hayu letotafot beineinecha. Uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha, uvisharecha. Leman tizkaru, va'asitem et kol mitzvotai, v'item kedoshim lelohechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem, asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, liot lachem le'elohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem. We continue on page 121. Please read responsibly. The eternal truth is that you alone are God, and there is none else. May the righteous of all nations rejoice in your love and exult in your justice. Let them beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Let nation not lift up sword against nation, nor learn war anymore. You shall not hate your brother or sister in your heart. The stranger that sojourns with you shall be accepted as your equal, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. Why do you crush my people and oppress the poor? Asked God. We know that the Eternal One defends the poor and upholds the rights of the needy. Praise to God Most High. Blessed is God and deserving of blessing.
Yai bye bye bim biddy bum, yap bye bye bim bum. Yai bye bye bim biddy bum, yap bye bye bim bum. I die 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 die, yap bye bye bim bum. I die 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 die, yap bye bye bim bum. Mi chamocha, vayli madonna. Mi chamocha, nedar bakodesh, norati hilod, oh say felle, norati hilod, oh say felle. Shira chadasha, shibchu geulim, lishimcha al sfat hayam. Yachad kulam hodu, v'himlechu ve'ameru, Adonai yimloch l'olam va'ed. Yai bye bye bim bidi bam, yai bye bye bim bam, yai bye bye bim bidi bam, yai bye bye bim bam. I die 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 die, yai bye bye bim bam. I die die die, yai bye bye bim bam. Tzur Yisrael, Kuma be'ezrat Yisrael, Uvdechinu mecha, Yehuda ve'Yisrael. Go aleinu, Adonai tzivaot shemo, Kedosh Yisrael, Baruch atah Adonai, Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, El Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei Hakol, V'zoner Hasei Avot Imahot, Umehiyu Livnei Bneihem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava. Zochreinu lechaim, melech hafetz b'chaim, melech hafetz b'chaim, v'chodreinu b'sefer, b'sefer ha'chaim, lemancha Elohim chaim, melech ozer u'moshiach u'magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham v'ezrat Sarah.
Atah gibor le'olam Adonai, v'chayei kol atah rav lehoshia, morit atah, mechalkel chayim b'chesed, mechayei hakol b'rachamim rabim, somech noflim v'rofeh cholim, umatir asurim, umekayem emunato, lishenei afar, michamocha ba'al geburot, umidom elah, melech meni, umechayem, umatzmiach Yeshua.
Micha mocha av harachamim, zocher yitzurav lechayim berachamim, ne'eman atah lachayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, mechayei hakol. We continue on page 130.
Nikadesh et shimcha ba'olam, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשני מרום, כך כתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה ואמר, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, ללא כל הארץ כבודו. Adir, Adirenu, Adonai, Adonenu, Ma'adir, Shimcha b'chol ha'aretz, Baruch kevod Adonai, mimkomo. Echadu Eloheinu, Hu Avinu, Hu Malkeinu, Hu Moshienu, V'hu Yashmienu, V'rachamav le'enei kol chai. Ani Adonai Elohechem, Yimloch Adonai le'olam, Elohai Yivzion, Ledor v'ador. Hallelujah. Ledor v'ador nagid godlecha, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש, ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני המלך הקדוש. Please be seated. We continue on page 132.
Those of you familiar with our prayers may notice slight changes in there, things we added in, words that we changed, because it's Shabbat Shuvah, the Sabbath between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and that involves just a few changes in our liturgy. Bottom of page 132. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat lazon et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berin olam. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat lazon et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berin olam. Beini uvein b'nei Yisrael oti leolam, oti leolam. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat lazon et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai, asa Adonai et hashamayim v'et haaretz. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat lazon et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Uvayom hashvi Shabbat vayinafash, Shabbat vayinafash, Shabbat vayinafash. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat lazon et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat lazon et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam.
Please turn to page 135. We offer thanks, O God, for this Shabbat which unites us in faith and hope, for Shabbat holiness which inspires sacred living, for Shabbat memories glowing even in darkness, for Shabbat peace born of friendship and love. We offer thanks and blessing, O God. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. We continue on page 137. Ever-present one, may we, your people Israel, be worthy in our deeds and our prayer, wherever we live, wherever we seek you, in this land, in Zion restored, in all lands. You are our God, whom alone we serve in reverence. Baruch atah Adonai, she'orcha livadcha b'yirah na'avod. Please turn to page 138. We acknowledge with thanks that you are Adonai, our God, and the God of our ancestors forever. You are the rock of our lives and the shield of our salvation in every generation. Let us thank you and praise you for our lives which are in your hand, for our souls which are in your care, for your miracles that we experience every day, and for your wondrous deeds and favors at every time of day, evening, morning, and noon. O good one, whose mercies never end, O compassionate one, whose kindness never fails, we forever put our hope in you. For all these things, O sovereign, let your name be forever praised and blessed. Inscribe all the children of your covenant for a good life. O God, our Redeemer and Helper, let all who live affirm you and praise your name in truth. Blessed are you, Adonai. Your name is goodness, and you are worthy of thanksgiving. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha u'lecha na'ed lehodod. Please turn to page 140.
Sim shalom, tova uvracha, chen v'chesed v'rachamim aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael amecha, barcheinu yotzreinu kulanu kechad, ve'or panecha, ki ve'or panecha natata lanu, Adonai Eloheinu. Sim shalom, tova uvracha, chen v'chesed v'rachamim aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael amecha, Torah ve'ahavat chesed, ve'ahavat chesed, u'tzedaka u'vracha, ve'rachamim, ve'chaim, ve'shalom, sin shalom, tova u'vracha, pain v'chesed, ve'rachamim aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol Yisrael amecha, v'tov be'einecha levarech, et amcha Yisrael, b'chol ein u'b'chol shah, tishlomecha, sim shalom, tova u'vracha, chen v'chesed, ve'rachamim aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, amecha.
Silent prayer may be found on pages 142 and 143.
The bottom of page 142. Oh, say shalom b'romav, u'yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru amen. Oh, say shalom b'romav, u'yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru. Here comes the clapping part. You ready? Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. 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 Yaseh shalom, shalom ve'al kol Yisrael. Oh, say shalom b'mromav, u'yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru We continue now with the service for the reading of the Torah. I invite you to turn to page 244 and please rise. Ein kamocha va'Elohim Adonai, ve'ein kemasecha, malchutecha, malchut kol olamim, umemshaltecha bechol dor v'hador. Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai yimloch, le'olam va'ed. Adonai oz le'amo yitein, Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom, av harachamim, heitiv avertzoncha et Zion. Tivnei chomot Yerushalayim, Tivnei chomot Yerushalayim, Kivecha levad batachnu, melech el ram v'nisa, Adon Olamim. Moshe kibel Torah miSinai, umsorah loHoshua, v'Hoshua lazkenim, v'zkenim laneviim. Moses received the Torah on Mount Sinai. He passed it to Joshua, Joshua to the elders to the prophets. So has the Torah been passed from one generation of our people to the next, each generation teaching the next to love and cherish the teachings contained within this scroll. This morning, Jake stands in that chain of tradition as he receives the Torah through the generations of his family. And in passing the Torah to him, his parents and grandparents in turn demonstrate one of the mitzvot contained within this scroll. Vishinantam levanecha, you shall teach it faithfully to your children. Havu godel Eloheinu utenu chavod laTorah, let us declare the greatness of our God and give honor to the Torah. Ki mitzion teitzei Torah, ki mitzion teitzei Torah, udevar Adonai meHerushalayim, Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah, Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah, Le'amo Yisrael, B'Hikdushato.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo. Gadlu l'Adonai iti, uneromema Shemo yachdav. Lecha Adonai hagedula, v'hagevura, v'hatiferet, v'hanetzach, v'hahod. Ki chol b'shamayim uvaretz, ki chol b'shamayim uvaretz. Lecha Adonai hamamlacha, ve'amit na'aseh lechol lerosh. Al shlosha divarim, al shlosha divarim, al shlosha divarim, haolam omed. Al shlosha divarim, al shlosha divarim, al shlosha divarim, haolam omed. Al haTorah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al gemilut chasadim. Al haTorah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al gemilut chasadim. You may be seated.
You're going up to the top of the second column, right? No. Oh, it's Vayelach. Okay. There we go. Let's roll a little more. Okay.
This week's Torah portion explains what Moses did to prepare for his death. Moses speaks before all the Israelites planning to cross into the Promised Land. He declares that he is now 120 years old, and he can no longer be their leader. Along with that, Moses tells the Israelites that God has forbidden him from going into the promised land. Moses reassures the Israelites by explaining that God will clear the path for them and that he has assigned Joshua to lead them. Moses says to the Israelites not to be afraid, telling them to be strong and resolute and to keep their faith in God. Moses also tells Joshua, "Be strong and resolute, for it is you who shall go with this people into the land that the Eternal swore to their fathers to give them, and it is you who shall apportion it to them. God will not fail you or forsake you. Fear not and be not dismayed." Moses instructed the Levites that every 7th year, at the Feast of Booths, that is Sukkot, and when all Israel comes before God in a place God has chosen, they shall read God's teaching to all of Israel. But Deuteronomy, the last book of Torah, was written hundreds of years after the events it describes. What Moses said in the Torah was not actually what he said, but rather an assumption. The author made educated guesses about what Moses could have said in his final days. It is more what the author is trying to convey, not Moses. Moses gave an inspiring speech and instructed for it to be read every 7 years. This is the author's way of adding instructions into a story that would affect the current world at the author's time. The author wanted to give a reminder to the Israelites to be strong and resolute. In the end, this week's Torah portion, Vayelech, is a way of telling a story to remind us of our duty to God and to each other. I feel that this portion has a very important lesson that relates well to current times. Moses kept leading until his end, even when he couldn't cross over into the promised land to see what his leadership had done for the Israelites. The Israelites had wandered for 40 years, and they knew that when they crossed into the promised land, they would face many more challenges. Vayelech tells us that even when things aren't great, and when our hardships are numerous, to keep our heads up. For the past year and a half, COVID has made life hard for everyone, but I believe that, in the end, things will turn out fine. We have to keep our masks on when told, not to protect ourselves, but to protect others. We have to be considerate of those who aren't as fortunate as us. And most importantly, we must stay strong and resolute.
You'll be able to follow along with the Torah reading in the service pamphlet. In the middle, you'll see the Torah reading in Hebrew and in English. And we're going to come back to that reading afterwards and consider some of what Jake has taught us about his Torah portion. Our first aliyah this morning, first set of Torah blessings, will be recited by Jake's grandmother, Rochelle Rossler, and the translation will be read by family friend Joe Hemuli. Ta'amod Rachel bat Shimon v'Chaya.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach leolam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bahar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayelech Moshe vayedaber et hadvarim ha'ela el kol Yisrael. Vayomer alehem ben me'ah v'esrim shana anochi hayom lo cha'od latzeit v'lavo v'Adonai amar elai lo ta'avor et hayarden hazeh. Adonai Elohecha hu over lefanecha hu yashmid et hagoyim ha'ela milefanecha virishtam Yehoshua hu over lefanecha kasher deber Adonai.
Back to you, Rochelle.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Turat emet v'chaye olam nita b'tochenu Baruch ata Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Moses went and spoke these things to all Israel. He said to them, I am now 120 years old. I can no longer be active. Moreover, the Eternal has said to me, you shall not go across yonder Jordan. It is indeed the Eternal your God who will cross over before you and who will wipe out those nations from your path, and you shall dispossess them. Joshua is the one who will cross before you, as the Eternal has spoken.
Our second aliyah will be recited by Jake's grandparents, Howard and Geraldine Cohen, and the translation will be read by Jake's cousin, Allie Cohen. Yamdu Tzvi ben Yaakov v'Libka v'Yocheved bat Shmuel v'Ida.
Baruch et Adonai Hambarach. Baruch Adonai Hambarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bocher banu mikol hamim v'notan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Ve'asa Adonai lahem kasher asa l'sichonu log malchei ha'amorim u'lartzam asher hishmid otam untanam Adonai lifnechem v'asitem lachem kechol hamitzvah asher tziviti etchem chizku v'imtzu al tiriu v'al tartu mipneihem Ki Adonai Elohecha, hu ha'olech imach, lo yarpecha v'lo yazvecha.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher notan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam notaboch derechenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
The Eternal will do to them as was done to Shelah and Og, kings of Amors, and to their countries when God wiped them out. The Eternal will deliver them up to you, and you shall deal with them in full accordance with the instruction that I have enjoined upon you. Be strong and resolute, be not in fear or in dread of them. For it is indeed the Eternal of your God who watches with you. God will not fail you or forsake you.
Our third aliyah will be recited by Jake's parents, Dan and Debbie, and the translation read by Jake's uncle, Richard Cohen. Yamdu Devorah bat Tzvi v'Yocheved v'Daniel ben Aryeh v'Rachel.
Baruch et Adonai Hamavarach. Baruch Adonai Hambarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol hamim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Vayikra Moshe lehoshua, vayomer elav, leinei kol Yisrael, chazak ve'emat ki ata, tavo et ha'am hazeh el haaretz, asher nishba Adonai, lavotam latet lahem, ve'ata tanchilena otam. V'Adonai hu ha'olech lefanecha, hu yeh imach, lo yarpecha v'lo ya'azvecha, lo tira v'lo techat. Vayichtov Moshe et haTorah hazot vayitna el haKohanim b'nei Levi hanoseim et Aaron berit Adonai ve'el kol ziknei Yisrael.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chai olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen.
Then Moses called Joshua and said to him in the sight of all Israel, "Be strong and resolute, for it is you who shall go with this people into the land that the Eternal swore to their fathers to give them, and it is you who shall apportion it to them. And it is indeed the Eternal who will go before you. God will be with you, God will not fail you or forsake you. Fear not and be not dismayed." Moses wrote down this teaching and gave it to the priests, sons of Levi, who carried the ark of the Eternal's covenant, and to all the elders of Israel.
And our final aliyah this morning will be recited by our bar mitzvah Jake, and the translation will be read by family friend Jamie Mongoso. Ya'amod Yaakov ben Daniel Udevora Bar Chor Bar Mitzvah Chazak Chazak V'nitchazek.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Hamarach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamvarach leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Vayetzav Moshe otam lemor, miketz sheva shanim, b'moed shenat hashmita b'chag hasukot, b'vo kol Yisrael, le'rot et pnei Adonai Elohecha, b'makom asher yivchar, tikra et haTorah hazot, neged kol Yisrael boznehem. Hakel etam, anashim v'hanashim v'hataf v'geirecha asher bisharecha, leman yishmu u'ma'an yilmedu, v'yaru et Adonai Elohechem, v'shamru la'asot et kol divrei haTorah hazot. Uvneihem asher lo yadu, yishmu v'lamedu, liriyat Adonai Elohechem, kol hayamim asher atem chayim al ha'adama, asher atem ovrim et hayarden, shama lirishta. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
And Moses instructed them as follows. Every 7th year, the year set for remission at the Feast of Booths, when all Israel comes to appear before the Eternal your God, in the place that God will choose. You shall read this teaching aloud in the presence of all Israel. Gather the people, men, women, children, and the strangers in your communities. that they may hear and so learn to revere the eternal your God and to observe faithfully every word of his teaching. Their children, too, who have not had the experience, shall hear and learn to revere the eternal your God as long as they live in the land that you are about to cross the Jordan to possess.
Okay, we're going to roll this up, so, yep. And I got it. You move the microphone, Sharon. And Richard, can you come have a seat over on this side, please? And Ethan, can you come on up, join us up here, please? Yeah, yeah. And I'd like you to stand right here and face me, and Ethan right next to your brother, and just slide over so I can see. Yeah.
Mishaberach Avotenu Mishaberach Avotenu Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov v'imotenu Sarah Rivka Rachel v'Leah Hu Yivarech et Mishpachat Rosler. May the one who blessed our ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, and Leah bless the Rosler family. May you, Jake and Ethan, always know the love and support of your parents. And may you, Debbie and Dan, always have in return the love and respect of your children. May your entire family be blessed with health and long life. May the joy of this day's service long echo in your memory, and may it inspire you to walk hand in hand in the ways of kindness and truth. Let us say together, Amen. And now as we see the portion that has just been read to us, I invite you to please rise.
Sharon, you're in the spot.
V'zot ha'Torah asher sam Moshe l'ifnei Yisrael b'yad Adonai b'yad Moshe. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Kol hanshama tehallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Kol hanshama tehallelujah, hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. You may be seated.
This week, we read the special Haftarah for Shabbat Shuvah, the Sabbath between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. This reading comes from the book of Hosea. In this portion, Hosea says that the Jewish people will return to God. Returning is the theme of this high holiday season. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nviim tovim v'ratza v'divreihem hane'emarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai habocher b'torah uv'Moshe avdo uv'Yisrael amo uv'nviei ha'emet v'tzedek. Yelechu yonikotav vihi chazayit hodo v'reach lo kalevanon yashuvu yoshevei v'tzilo yechayu dagan v'yifrechu chagafen zichro ke'en levanon Ephraim maliyot latzabim Ani tivashurenu, ani kivrosh ranan, ממני פרייך נמצא, מי חכם ויבן אלה, נעבוד ויראה, כי ישרים דרכי אדוני, וצדיקים ילכו בם, ופושעים ייכשלו בם. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, tzor kol haolamim, sadik bechol hadorot, ha'el ha'ne'eman, ha'omer ve'oseh, ha'medaber u'mkayem, shekol devarav emet v'tzedek, al ha'torah, ve'al ha'avodah, ve'al ha'nevim, ve'al yom ha'shabbat hazeh, shenatata lanu, Adonai Eloheinu, likdusha v'limnucha, lechavod u'tifaret, al hakol, Adonai Eloheinu, anachnu modim lach, u'mevarchim otach, yitbarach shimcha b'fi kol chai, tamid le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh ha'shabbat.
Amen. Dan and Debbie, come on up. Stand right here, raise your hands.
Wow, you really crushed it. Amazing. Jake, you did an amazing job, and I really couldn't be more proud of you. You are growing into a wonderful young man, and I'm honored to cheer you on and support you on your journey. I remember when you were a baby, before you could talk, Dad and I used to always wonder what you were thinking about, envisioning all sorts of sage thoughts. Well, at the time, you were probably just thinking about playing with your Thomas the Tank Engine. Today, you really are a deep thinker, and in many ways, you are wise beyond your years. Now, don't get me wrong. We both know you spend a good amount of your brain energy on crazy YouTube videos, internet memes, and League of Legends strategies. But when you put your mind to it, many of the insights you have really blow me away. You are very hardworking and determined, and when you set your mind on achieving something, you give it your all. These are characteristics that will make you successful throughout your life, and they also contributed to you doing such an amazing job today leading the service for your bar mitzvah. I love your wittiness and your sense of humor, and you keep us laughing all the time, and I appreciate your ability to use humor to lighten the mood during difficult times. In your Devar Torah today, you spoke about the importance of resilience when times are tough. My wish for you is that you hold on to this message and demonstrate resilience throughout your life. Life will have its ups and downs, and often you need to go through adversity or even failure before you find success and achieve your goals. You have so many wonderful characteristics, and you absolutely have the potential to do great and amazing things. In the words of Michelangelo, it's better to aim high and miss than to aim low and hit. Just go for it, embrace life to the fullest, follow your own path, and do what you love. I also hope that you continue to honor your Jewish heritage and traditions. I'm very proud that you have chosen to continue your involvement in the Beth Emet community by acting as a madrich in the Hebrew school this upcoming year. Mazel tov, Jake, on becoming a bar mitzvah. I love you.
Jake hasn't heard these before, so that's why the look on his face. Jake, you'll see a theme here. When you were born, our relationship was essentially about care and feeding. You'd eat, and we'd change your diapers. But I still recall our excitement when you actually began to engage us. First a glance, then a smile, and quickly you were fully responsive, telling us with sign language if you wanted more Cheerios or you were all done, you were finished. Over the next 12 years, you developed your language, writing, athletics, and art. You became a Boy Scout, learned to code and to play saxophone. But in this past year, as you've prepared to become a bar mitzvah, It's been truly remarkable to see how you've grown to the next level. And I'm not just talking about the 6 inches in height you've literally added this year, but that you've grown in your maturity, in your self-management, in your schoolwork, and in your preparation for this day. And most notably, you've also grown in your thinking, what you've learned, your ideas, the way you piece information together to draw original conclusions, and the kind of questions that you ask. Now you're engaging us at a whole new level, and we love it. And seeing the amazing job you've done today and the young adult you are becoming, we are so proud of you and so very excited for all the things to come. So my wish for you is very simply to keep it going. Continue to engage us and those around you with your inquisitiveness, your cleverness, and your wit. Embrace opportunities to learn and to grow and to engage others with your thoughts and your talents as you eventually spread your wings further and venture out to engage the world. Know that you always have a home here and our love and our support. But now you can get more Cheerios by yourself. Love you so much.
Join me in giving Rosler's Mazel Tov. Mazel Tov. Thank you. Okay, Jake, you get to have a seat. Well, we're all really touched by your words, Debbie and Dan, and it's a deep, powerful lesson to never hem the slacks until the week before the bar mitzvah. You know, Jake's remarks about his Torah portion, they had so much information in them. I really just want to highlight a few of my favorite phrases out of this portion because he taught us already so much about the portion, particularly this insight about where it comes from. If you open up your pamphlet, you'll see some of the phrases that I find really particularly interesting. Go to the opening of the very beginning of the Torah reading, and Moses says, "You know, I'm 120 years old." So from this 120 years, we actually get a tradition in Judaism, which is, what do you say to somebody on their birthday? On their birthday, you say to somebody to 120, Ad 120. Why? Because this is the length of Moses' life. We are understood from this particular verse that this is the kind of like the upper limit of what God gives us. I don't know if that in fact is the case, but it's the ideal that is presented in the Torah, and certainly would have been an exceptionally long life, even as now, but then who could imagine? You say to somebody on their birthday, Ad 120, may you live to 120. Now, there is one particular word in here that's really interesting. You notice that if you look down to verse 9, it says, Moses wrote down this teaching and gave it to the priests. And the word, if you're reading the Hebrew over on the other side, it says, Vayichtov Moshe et ha-Torah hazot. Moses wrote down this, and then he uses the word Torah. But of course, that couldn't be the Torah, could it? That's why it's not translated. Moses wrote the Torah. It uses the word Torah in its literal meaning of teaching. Why couldn't it be the Torah? Because we haven't come to the end of the Torah yet. So how could the text say, and so Moses wrote this Torah, but we haven't gotten to the end of the book yet. What does it mean then? What teaching is it talking about? Most scholars believe that the very central part of Deuteronomy is mostly law, surrounded by some speeches, and it means all those laws. Moses was reviewing the laws for the Israelites before they entered the land of Israel, and then Moses wrote them all down and handed it over to the priests, said, okay, guys, you hang on to this, and then what are they supposed to do with it? Well, in verse 10, we learn that every 7 years, They were supposed to come together and read it out loud. What's going on here? First of all, it's during Sukkot, very nice timing, because Sukkot's coming up in 2 weeks, a little less than 2 weeks, week and a half. We'll be at Sukkot. Is that right? Even less than that. And Sukkot was the big holiday back in ancient times. That was the largest holiday. So every 7 years, they would get together and have a national convention. And the priests were supposed to read out loud all the laws and say, just remember, these are the laws we're supposed to follow. And from the author's perspective, the laws of the nation are the laws contained in Deuteronomy. As far as the author is concerned, it's the laws of this particular book that are the national laws. There's a real sense of national identity here. Unlike our practice of read Torah every week, well, the Torah didn't exist then. What's being said is we will have this ceremony, a public recommitment to the covenant of our nation every 7 years. We'll come together and remind ourselves what we're supposed to be like, what we're supposed to do. And then I think the most powerful phrase in here is the one that Jake emphasized, which is that Moses first tells the Israelites, be strong and resolute, and then he turns to Joshua, who's going to be the leader after Moses dies. He says to Joshua, Chazak v'amatz, you be strong and resolute. Here is a lesson about the nation. The nation has to have courage. Now, in the very narrow sense, this probably meant in a military sense. They're about to enter the land of Israel. You have to be courageous. But it probably also means more than that. As a nation, we will have to have courage, be strong and resolute. I can't help but think of the association with our task as a nation today on September 11th and on the 20th anniversary of 9/11, that the task remains our task as well. We have to come together, just like the Israelites were instructed to do every 7 years. We have to come together as a nation and recommit ourselves, just like they did, to the values of the nation. And we have to have the courage to do that. We have to be strong and resolute. And that's not something that comes easily. In fact, I don't think it would be in here, in the Torah, if it came easily to our ancestors either. That's why they needed a ceremony. That's why they needed this every 7 years during the year of remission, the year where everybody gets to free themselves of debt and go back to their home, their ancestral home. Now, you've got to have the courage to be united as a country. And we have to have ceremonies that remind us of that. Really couldn't be a more fitting text for a day like today, when, in fact, just before this service, across the street at the fire station, they had a 9/11 ceremony. And what's the purpose of those ceremonies, if not to remind us of what it means to be a nation and to be united and to be strong and resolute? Jake. I particularly like the conversations that we had around your Torah portion, and you really grabbed on to some of those ideas. Wow, it's not a snapshot of actually what happened during Moses' time. You taught everybody here something that most people don't understand, which is somebody wrote this down hundreds of years later. They imagined what Moses might have said. But in imagining it, of course, they created an image of what their nation should be like. That's a wonderful teaching that you shared with us. You said, well, we got to do the same thing. In the face of challenges, and you specifically mentioned the challenge of the pandemic, that it takes courage to be able to face those things. Well, of course, the same is true in each of our lives, and I hope that you will have the strength and the resolve to get through life's challenges, though I hope that they won't be as serious as some of the ones that we have had to face in the past. Certainly, your parents see tremendous possibility in what you can achieve based on what you have done today and they are rightfully proud, and you should be too. Now, traveling this path with you to get to this point, you have been accompanied by fellow travelers, your religious school classmates who have learned alongside with you, and they are here today to support you and to surround you with blessing. And so I would like to call up your religious school classmates to come up and join you up here as they hold up your class talit over our heads. This talit, each class makes its own class talit, decorated by the members of the class. They pick a theme, and are you ready? Everybody's going to have to kind of, crunch together up here. Let's spread that out and hold that with the decorated side down, okay, so that the congregation could see it nice and high. Jake, you and I are coming underneath. And I particularly like this because each of them chose what's that? Yeah, right underneath the kiwi here. Jake's got a kiwi here. Each of them chose a kind of fruit that they like. And actually, that's very much in keeping with our congregation's artistic theme, which is the 7 species, the 7 produce that is indigenous to the land of Israel. So you guys kind of did it in your own way. Okay, you ready? You guys know what to say? Yivarechacha Adonai v'yishmarecha. May God bless you and keep you. Cain keep you. Ya'er Adonai panave lecha v'chuneka. May God's light shine upon you and be good to you. Cain yehi ratzon. Yisa Adonai panave lecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May God's presence always be with you and grant you the gift of peace. Cain yehi ratzon. Amen. And if you would fold that up, please. Let's do a big amen together. Ready? Amen. And now, we are going to continue with returning the Torah to the Ark. Please turn to page 256, and please rise. Chaim hi lama chazikim ba v'tom cheha meushar diracheha darchei noam v'chol netivoteha shalom. Hashivenu Adonai Elecha v'nashuva Chadesh Yameinu Chadesh Yameinu Kekedem. You may be seated. Jake, in honor of your bar mitzvah, we have some things to give to you, and making the presentation this morning is Lisa Kama, past president of Congregation Beth Emek.
Shabbat Shalom. Before I speak to Jake, I would first like to thank Rabbi Milder for leading us in worship together with Jake today, and also to thank Sharon Cohen, who has served as Jake's tutor for his bar mitzvah and served as our gabbai today. So thank you both. Jake, Mazel Tov. This is exciting to celebrate your bar mitzvah with you. We've known your family since you moved to Pleasanton. You joined preschool with my son, Geffen, and I don't know if you remember this, but back in preschool, every other week we'd rotate houses for a play date. So, I remember. Yeah, remember? It's been a long time, so we've known you a long time, and it's so special to celebrate today with you and with your family. Mazel Tov. We have a few gifts for you. The first is a Kiddush cup, and like Rabbi Milder already mentioned, our congregation uses the theme of the 7 species for our decoration, and this Kiddush cup has that same motif. So wherever you go in life, you'll look at it, you'll remember the congregation where you came from, and get to use it and think of Beth Emek in your community here. A few other things we have for you. We have a certificate to prove that you actually had this day, although I've been making a video for you also, so we got good proof. And also, we have for you a certificate to take a trip to Israel with your peers. We hope that this day will just be the beginning of your Jewish journey, or a step on your Jewish journey that will also include continuing involvement here with Beth Emek, like your parents already mentioned that you're a madrich here, and we hope you'll also spend some time in Israel. So that's here as well, and that's it. Mazel tov to you and your family.
On this day of my bar mitzvah, I would like to thank those who have helped me reach this goal. I would like to thank Rabbi Milder, Sharon Cohen, and all of my teachers for supporting me in my Jewish and Hebrew studies. I would like to thank my classmates who I have learned alongside for many years, and most importantly, I would like to thank my parents who have always been there for me. Lastly, I would like to thank Congregation Beth Emek for the gifts.
Our service continues now with Aleinu on page 282. Please rise. Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol, latet gedula liotzer breshit, shelo asanu kegoyei ha'aratzot, velo samanu kemishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, umishtachavim umodim, lifnei melech, Malchei Hamlachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu, Shehu Notei Shamayim ve'Yosed Haaretz, Umoshav Yikaro b'Shamayim Ima'al, Ushchinatu zo, Begovei Meromim, Hu Eloheinu Einod, Emet Malkeinu Efesu Lato, Kakatuv betorato, V'yadata hayom v'hashivota elevavecha, Ki Adonai hu Elohim, B'shamayim imal, Ve'al haaretz, Mitachat einod.
Page 287. V'nemar. V'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yiyeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad. Page 295. We think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we have drawn into our hearts with our own. Zichronam livracha, may their memories be for blessing. Mourners Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah,
Ve'olma divrach hirotei v'yamlich malchutei, V'chayechon u'vyomechon, u'chayei dechol beit Yisrael. Ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabba mivorach le'olam u'lalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei dekudesha brichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata. Damiran belma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen.
May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us and to all Israel, to which we say amen. You may be seated. Following our closing song, we're going to join together outside on the courtyard for Kiddush and Motzi. And I invite you to come directly outside after the closing song. Pick up a cup of wine or grape juice on your way. The students will have the trays of wine and grape juice. The red cups are wine, the white cups are grape juice. And for our closing song, let's turn to page 321 and sing Adon Olam.
Adon Olam Asher Malach B'terem Kol Yitzir Nivra Le'et Nasa B'chefzo Kol Azai Melech Shemo Nikra V'acharei Kiklot HaKol Levado Yimloch Torah V'hu Haya V'hu Hoveh V'hu Yiyeh B'tifara Do 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 V'hu echad v'yein sheni L'hamshilo l'hachbira B'li reshit b'li tachlit V'lo ha'oz v'ha'misra V'hu eli v'chai goali B'tzor hebli v'yetzara V'hu nisi umanosli V'nat kosi b'yom ekra Do 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 B'yado hafkid ruchi V'yed ishan v'ha'ira V'im ruchi v'yati Adonai li v'lo ira Do 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 Shabbat Shalom.